All right, so in chapter 5 of the book PowerNomics, Dr. Claude Anderson begins to explain why group economics is really the engine and the solution to many of our problems. And he starts off by saying that every dollar we spend is actually a decision. It's almost like a political decision, and that we have $1 trillion in buyer power, but very little stays in our community, as we've discussed time and time again. And group economics is about being intentional about where you're going to spend your money. It isn't about exclusion, but it's just about empowerment. So it's not a case of like, well, we're not going to buy from another ethnic group, but it's just being intentional with once you get that dollar in your hand, your first thought is, how can I use this dollar to build within my community? Even going out to eat, how can I ensure that the joy that I'm about to get from spending money going out as opposed to cooking at home is actually going towards somebody that's going to build inside of our community? And again, if you feel like having food from a nice restaurant or a different taste that's not offered by someone in the black community, that's fine. This is not one of those weird things where you're going to be judged just because you decided to get Chinese food this week instead of food from a black owned business. But still, it's still taking that one little moment to think, how can my money this week go towards supporting a business that's actually supporting our community and investing within our community and has interest in our community growing. Another big one that you'll often see, and I'm starting to see, on YouTube as well, where people are saying, capitalism can't save the black community, and the way they describe it is the fact that these some of the billionaires or multimillionaires that have made it within our community, they're just out there and they stand as a inspiration and a feeling of pride that somebody's made it to those highest levels, made it out of college. But if they aren't investing in those communities, it's just individual success, and we're continuing to just celebrate individual success. But that goes back to that whole, the getting out of the hood or getting out of the black environment being the goal and being the success. So now that you're a millionaire, all you're doing is showing your lifestyle, but what are you doing to actually build back inside of your community? Not just give charity, but actually invest inside of your communities and actually building it up. So with investments, you want an ROI, but part of that ROI is the seeing your community rise. Yes, if you put money into something, you want to return money. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't continue to make money off of the developments and things they build in our communities, but we want people that are once you reach those high levels of economic success, using your economic success to make more money by building up the community, hiring people, investing in jobs, being venture capitalists for black-owned businesses and whatnot, so that the community continues to grow and your money as a multimillionaire, billionaire continues to move within the community and your wealth continues to grow. A wealthy few cannot do it by themselves, so everybody has to be on their game. But we have to have systems. So it can't just be the wealthy person and then you're looking at like, what has he done for the community? And you're looking again for them to just give charity. It has to be, okay, we are building these systems that we want you to invest in. We already have schools. We have charter schools. We have some private schools and we have public schools, but even investing in those public schools, and not even on the infrastructure side, because that's one of the keys we can get, sidestep the millions that got to be spent. We're saying that these schools aren't self-funded. We have all these rappers that claim that they come from these hard neighborhoods that have these downtrodden schools. What if they invested in the PTO of these programs? The state or the city has already given us a building to work in. They've made it mandatory for our kids to show up. So if you made millions as a rapper, entrepreneur, entertainer or any kind of way, we need to start getting those people to invest back into the schools, start giving to the PTO, and then holding those PTO members accountable for doing things that make it all the things that we complain that the state is not already funding our school for. We can do it through the parent teacher organizations. The money can fund it. It's a parent teacher organization. So we start getting the parents from these communities involved, right? If it's a low income community, you might not have the money to support the PTO. That's fine. We have the millionaire alumni that can support the PTO, but financially, but you're going to support it with your time. We're all in this together. And all of it transforms us from just consumers into builders. And the key case for all of this is that we have to be builders and not just passively waiting for the government or somebody else to do it. If you got a lot of money, you can donate your money. If you have time, you can donate your time. If you have talent, you donate your talent. Whatever it takes, we are building this community together. One of the other ones that you often hear, where you hear people say that the dollars doesn't circulate but one time in our community, but 6 to 20 times in other communities, that comes from the portion where we're talking about being builders. The dollar can't circulate within our community if we're not building business within the community. It's great for you to have a consumer mindset and say, I want to go and consume with a Black-owned business, but even better is if you have a builder's mindset and the money that you made from your job, you start figuring out how can I build something else, build ownership so that I can support with my work other businesses. And what I mean by that is that restaurant that you wanted to go to, the Black-owned business that we talked about Black-owned restaurant talked about a couple of minutes ago, they need a marketing team. Can you build a marketing agency? Now the dollar circulates to the restaurant from a consumer, and they're paying you as the marketer. Lawyers, again, I think I've said this in a couple of videos, the more vendors that we have that can support or provide services to these Black-owned businesses, that's how you keep that dollar circulating. And again, for me, with that foundation being how all of those people are supporting in the community. And again, when you think about the fact that we're supposed to be tithing from a biblical standpoint, if we are donating our money to a large church within that area that is actually doing something for the community. So I'm putting that on there in the fact that we are not just donating so the pastor can buy a helicopter or buy a nicer car. Yes, he needs to be compensated for the work that he does, but we are donating to churches who are using our money to, once they get the lights turned on and get the mortgage or rent paid for the building, are putting that money to work within our community. Our churches have a large group of people who are ready to volunteer. So that's the case. We don't have the employment issue of getting these people to do the work. They are ready to do the work that the church wants them to do. Now we have to put the dollars behind it to get it done. Dollars move everything. Politics, fundraising, no longer having to go out and hope that other people can fund the things that we need. We can work right there within our own communities. And again, even with the PTO, if each person doesn't want to figure out exactly what to do, you find a church that is doing things in your community and we donate there. So the church can be the one that's donating to the PTO and providing workers to assist the PTO. Because again, there's going to be a lot of parents, especially in the low-income communities, working 2-3 jobs. They might not all be able to get there. But again, if these rich celebrities are donating the money to the church and the church can provide the money that they've donated to the PTO, and again, have their members go over and actually volunteer their time and help the PTO. That's how we continue to help everybody with providing any kind of needs we have. So again, we have to become builders and not just consumers. Yes, there's $1 trillion worth of money that flows into Black hands and just flows out into other communities, but there's trillions of dollars of our time too that are doing the exact same thing. We have to start thinking about how are we going to use our money and our time together to build the communities. All right, so the ownership is power is the next thing we start talking about. Business ownership is when we own the businesses, we can control and create jobs. So all of this DEI stuff, as I'm filming this, it came out that I think like 300,000 black women have been laid off since they went anti DEI, anti woke, and all of that. But if that is the way they're targeting, if we are owning businesses in the future and we are building businesses that keeps those women hired despite the political environment, we are in control of our destiny. Media ownership is another one he keeps speaking about. Is when we own the media, we can control our narratives. Other communities are continuing to own all of the media. They own the algorithms, they own everything, and they get to put in front of our children the vision that they have for us, instead of us getting put in front of our children the vision that we have for them and for their future, as well as our own people. You what you see on what you see of yourself in the media becomes what you think is how you're supposed to be. That's why you often see that when somebody is not acting the way that the media portrays us, we start saying that they're not keeping it real. No, they're not keeping it the way that they have programmed us to believe. Capital ownership, we own the capital, we control our destiny. And then land ownership again allows us to control the development of the communities, and development of what it looks like in our communities. Again, when you look at a lot of low income communities, they might have like the same gas stations or corner stores or whatnot, but they are often run down. And one of the reasons why they're run down is because the people that are there do not care about the neighborhood. If you go to the suburbs, they know that if anything is run down or out of place, the carers are going to come out in full force and demand things to look better, or they'll lose their investment. When we start to own the businesses in our community, we can demand that the people that for one, we shouldn't even have to demand. If you have a business in our community, you should want the best for your business, best for your other community. But other people, when they come into the community, they think things like this is good enough, they'll take it. And we often have, because we do not have the financial power to demand more. And with people being low income in the neighborhood, they often figure that they can't afford to even go to another place or go to another option. So we're left with crap. So we have to start building all of these businesses that are catering and generating income off of our people. So the next thing that he talks about is building that infrastructure of trust. You often hear people, talk bad about black businesses, black services, or saying that they don't want to do business with black people or don't want to do business with their family or friends. And all this is because of a psychological breakdown of trust. There is no other ethnic group that looks at the shortcomings of a few and applies it to everyone. Now, there are shortcomings in our community when it comes to a lot of times for those black-owned businesses, but I also think that there's two things that's happening when we end up with black entrepreneurs and black business owners. One, when you see the environment that they grew up in and the way that the businesses operated when they were in those, it's again, you've grown up seeing these services businesses in your neighborhood not treat customers well, so you think it's okay to treat businesses like that. Number two, a lot of black people go into business with this idea of, I'm just going to be my own boss, I'm not going to listen to anybody. But when you go into business, you no longer have one boss. All of your customers become your boss. So that customer service and pleasing, just like when you was working a 9 to 5, you had to please your boss. Now that you own a business, you now have to please the customers. And I think the whole, I'm going to be my own boss and not listen to anybody, starts to affect us on that. So it just turns into holding the black-owned businesses accountable like you would hold your brother or your child or a family member accountable. Like, hey man, this is not a good look. Want to make sure that you stay in our business. How can we help you fix this? that is how you do it, instead of going straight to Facebook and posting a picture of what went wrong to bash the business and ultimately lose it. You are talking to the manager directly and saying, look, man, I'm not even asking for a refund, but this is going to cost you money and we're going to end up losing you, and somebody else is going to come in that doesn't care about us. So here's what you can do to kind of fix it. Like, just offering things like, here's my advice. Even if you don't own a business, here's my advice as a customer of how you can better serve your customers so that you last in our community and you can be stronger. Like I said, giving grace from the giving grace, higher standards is what we talked about earlier. Like, every business, every black-owned business should be trying to out-service Chick-fil-A. Regardless of what you do, when you are interfacing with a customer, it also should be, what would Chick-fil-A do? Regardless of how you feel about Chick-fil-A and their politics, what would Chick-fil-A do? Everybody will wait in line, and we've also heard people talk about how great Chick-fil-A service is. The service with a smile, it's speedy. It's trying to figure out, how do you ensure that every consumer that comes to a black-owned business walks away happy in the way that they walk away with their Chick-fil-A meal. And then word of mouth and promotion. As the consumers, when you see a new black-owned business popping up, go support it. Bring some friends to come support it. If y'all have a great time, a good time, go on Yelp, Google reviews, Facebook reviews, share them in your stories, let other people know, give them the free marketing. That way they can stay in our communities, and then encourage others to do so we can keep that cycle going, keep this business going strong, and keep black businesses profitable so that they can in turn start to hire people from the community. And again, going back to that political power, Dr. Claude goes back to the fact that black-owned businesses, local jobs, and community investment builds our economic power. Where we get to use that community leverage is organized neighborhoods with economic clout. And then we start to get that political influence to actually fund the candidates. And once you can fund the candidates, you can actually shape the policy and protect our own interests. And all of that comes from actually investing in our businesses and investing in institutions that are already in our communities. Those big major institutions that we have that we can control already are the churches and many of the schools in the communities already. We can start there. There are other nonprofits that we can support through those institutions, but those are the primary institutions that we already have large numbers in. We can start there and start building from that. So he starts talking about it in practice and giving you examples. So your daily choices are who you buying your grocery from, trying to seek out if there are black-owned markets. If there aren't, maybe you could be the one that starts that black-owned bodega, black-owned co-op, opening accounts with black-owned banks, working with black-owned credit unions, looking for black-owned mortgage lenders. So mortgage lenders and loan officers. So regardless of the business that they're in, still trying to find a way to still support. Because the reason you bank black is because you actually want to get you want to support that institution so that they can loan money better to our communities, again keeping that dollar circulating. But if there are mortgage lenders or business credit lenders or loan officers in general that are part members of our community, members of our churches, again you can support them. That way they get the commissions from it, even though they might not work for a black-owned business. They might be independent or work for a larger one, but they get the commissions. And again, when we're all doing this together, their commissions are still being invested into our community. Those are the people that we're trying to work with and expect them to do it. We hold them accountable for, hey, I'm supporting you. It's not just skin color, it's culture and community. So if I'm choosing you, what are you doing with your money that helps build our community? Again, number 2, he goes back to community building. You start recommending black-owned brands. Put them in your stories, put them in your conversations. Just get used to saying them. You don't even have to say black-owned. That's another reason why I like the idea of doing this with the church, and he talks about it in chapter 8. I'll get there. But even for recommending your black-owned brands and businesses to other cultures, the part where you always say, hey, man, yeah, I know a black-owned architect that can help you. No, it's just, hey, I got a guy from my church that does that. And it becomes really easy. And that's what they do, too. While we're mostly go-to black-owned churches, you don't have to actually say this person is black. You're just saying, hey, yes, yeah, I know a lawyer, good guy, goes to my church. I'll send you his card. So now we've just introduced him to other communities, and that's when you really start to make the money, because you start you start getting money from other communities pouring into our community, the way that our money often flows out to theirs. When we start recommending our own people to our people as well as other people, you get more and more money coming into it. And then you have this future focus, which again why I kept bringing up the PTO in schools. We're supporting the schools while they're while they're at school from 7 to 3 or 8 to 4 or whatever. But you start having these business owners come in and start mentoring these young future entrepreneurs and business owners, and they start to build that relationship with them. And that is how they start to be able to say that, they've had internships, who they worked with, that 3 to 5 years of experience when you're supposed to be fresh out of high school or college. Other communities can figure that out because that 3 to 5 years of experience comes from summer internships with people that go to their churches and business owners that are invested in their community. We can do the same. When black business owners start hiring high school students to work for them in the summers after school, those kids can start to get that 3 to 5 years experience before they even get to college. And we start to building inheritance and ownership of everything in our community. When you're going from just transactional to transformation, again, it's that job creation, the wealth retention within the community. We start building stronger institutions. The stronger institutions become that foundation of which everybody else is built upon. We get the increased political influence from those institutions. Whenever there is the war, the first thing they attack is the institutions, because they know that is where the collective power is. So the more money we pour into institutions that actually pour into the community, again, I don't want any arguments about what the church in your city or the church in your town or whatever some other church has done. We are investing into nonprofits and churches and organizations that are actually investing into the community. If you know a scammer, like I said with the businesses, hold them accountable. If they don't hold themselves accountable, we move our money elsewhere. We're not judging them all, but we are holding them all accountable. Once you do all of these things, you start to improve the quality of life wherever we are. Improved education, improved healthcare, and it's just greater control of our culture, how we're viewed, and where we are headed as a culture. And we got to do this now. It's getting more and more toxic in the political realm. Hopefully some years from now, this portion won't even make sense about how toxic it is. But we have to start building this now. And we have to start building it everywhere. If people are talking about exiting and going becoming an expat in another country, we're eventually still going to find each other. And when we find each other in those other countries, if we're not participating and doing collectivism and group economics, we're still going to fall for the same old problems, the same old schemes, and still be complaining in the exact same way. We have to build a collectivist group economic mindset.